AI is getting expensive.
Aren't they just going to drop the price in 3 months?
Big multi-billion-dollar circular funding deals we hear about, all of them had a massively negative ROI.
And that's where the real return kicks in. That even 30 days ago, customers were not having that conversation with us.
Might actually slow you down.
Buy versus build. They've decided to buy.
We're already seeing the natural evolution of people being more productive.
AI has propelled now space travel, rocket development, the next generation of internet.
AI
In orbit.
in space.
We wouldn't turn it on unless we had controls around this.
Welcome to AI Unplugged, episode 15. I am joined today with Jeffrey Valentine,
Hello.
Andrew Sinclair,
Hi.
and the one and only Justin Copey.
Why did you call Jeffrey?
What? That's his formal name.
This is my mother-in-law speaking at this point.
That's your given name, right?
We don't use that name.
What's your middle name again?
Jeffrey.
You
Just tell
know
everybody
that Jeff
Jeffrey.
hates it.
Oh my God. Let's move on.
David. right?
Next, we're going to be
talking about
spelling
AI,
Jeff's
though.
name.
Yes.
with a
Oh, so anyway.
G.
Jeff. Today, we're here to talk about a whole slew of things, ranging from new models like Fable and Mythos, all the way through tokenomics and why AI is getting expensive, as well as the impact it's going to have on the economy, we think, based off of a number of IPOs launching pretty soon. So, a lot to get into.
Let's do it. A lot going on.
Expensive, that's for sure. I remember last week we were talking about how a lot of the jobs that were optimized for agentic tools are now kind of facing some regret and backlash because the cost of those services is more than the employees that they were meant to replace. And there was just a study that came out reported by the Financial Times looking at the implied return of all this hyperscaler AI investment, these big multi-billion-dollar circular funding deals we hear about, and of Microsoft with Azure, Alphabet with Gemini, Meta, Oracle, all of them had a massively negative ROI. The only one that showed positive was Amazon.
What?
With everything they were doing. Here's a question.
It's Nova.
Why? What's behind that?
Why would that
Why
be
would
the
that be?
case?
I got a guess.
Yeah, I have a theory.
I'm not sure. I think we should ask somebody, but my guess is that Amazon is spending relative to enabling other platforms and other models more than they're spending on their own model.
Yeah.
So less R&D.
Less like LLM development is expensive, and keeping up with the Joneses is like a lot of money. But if you're mostly enabling the maybe Anthropic motion on AWS or the OpenAI motion on AWS, you don't need to invest as much in Nova.
And they've announced huge partnerships around both of those in the
Yeah.
last month.
But they're
That's
selling
my
more
guess.
shovels. Selling more shovels.
Yeah.
So how does that relate to Oracle? Because Oracle was the biggest loss at a projected 35%.
But that was an
was a-
ROI number though.
Yeah.
And that was they might be spending a lot and not showing a lot of revenue from it. Maybe it's the same spend but not enough revenue.
Is it the economies of scale of the infrastructure? Like, is it that AWS
Maybe
is so
it's a
far
CapEx cost up
advanced?
front.
Right.
And they haven't seen any return yet.
Right.
So
Or
just-
it's projected return. But
Oh, it's projected. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, from an Amazon lens, I know they have released less and less of their Nova product line as of late. Not saying that's good or bad, but they just have, right? And I think that speaks to what you're saying, Jeff. It's
Yeah.
like, look, they're spending more time on selling shovels, enabling other partners to build their models and host it, which to me is a good thing. That is Amazon at its purest.
Yeah.
It is them as an infrastructure provider, an enabler. They're not trying to be an ISV. They're not trying to be the model vendor themselves. They're trying to enable others, and they make the most money on it.
Isn't this kind of the same strategy as Apple with Siri? They weren't spending a ton of money with R&D building out Apple AI or whatever they were calling it.
intelligence.
Is Apple Intelligence, thank you. It's that they're using separate third-party tools. In this case, I think they chose Gemini to be able to build it into their products.
Yeah, I think it's similar, right? It's a partner motion. They're partnering instead of building. It's buy versus build. They've decided to buy
Yeah.
instead of building.
But you guys really think that we're seeing the productivity gains at the customer level from AI?
What do you mean by customer level?
Well, customers using AI. So we could look at our business and the fact that if you look at our work type, the work output of innovative solutions as a system integrator for customers, the majority of our work type is code. It's coding.
Yeah.
So one would argue in a business like ours, we would see a significant uptick in productivity. And we've measured this from a variety of lenses, and maybe conservatively, we could all probably back a 15 to 20% productivity gain.
I think you could easily measure that amount, and then there's the immeasurable.
Okay.
As
So
well.
so that's us.
Yeah.
What I was saying or asking and throwing on the table for us maybe just to spend a second on would be just kind of our own take on where we see customers seeing a productivity gain. Because
Yeah.
I don't think that has materialized yet.
I agree.
And I also believe that a lot of the agentic workflow that's being built either by customers or for customers, that the returns on a lot of that automation is in the repeating of the tasks that it will be doing on a monthly, quarterly, let's just say annual basis. And that's where the real return kicks in. And so that there's this lagging indicator where a customer today might be like, we're not really seeing the efficiency gains or the productivity gains.
Right.
But the real story is going into the end of this year, into next year, as some of this automation really starts to allow itself to propagate and build on itself, that's where the real productivity gains will start to be shown. So like if we fast forward to AI Unplugged, episode 32,
yeah,
that might not be as big of a conversation because we will be seeing it all over the place. I'm throwing that out there as maybe
Well, it's just not your observation and just of what Innovative is doing. Just yesterday, AWS, the official AWS account, tweeted saying there's more AI generated code. It does not make your team faster. It might actually slow you down. So that's obviously the opposite of productivity gains. They're seeing that it's moving them the other direction. And that's just kind of a wild quote for them to have based upon their business and what they're selling.
It's an interesting point. So Justin, you remember back before the cloud was a ubiquitous thing, people were talking about the productivity gains of the cloud.
Or the cost savings.
I remember
that. Everybody wanted to talk about where's the cost savings of the cloud.
Right. But the reality was the biggest value people got from the cloud was doing business differently because of the cloud. You didn't have to just wait to spin up a server. You could write an application differently. And it wasn't just about displacing Dell. It was about changing your software development process. And it took time for that to sink in. So I'm with you on that. But like you just said, what if a year from now, 2 years from now, we're doing this podcast and we're looking back and saying, I can't believe we questioned the ROI. We questioned the productivity gains. It's like today looking back at our days before email and saying, what was it like to send intra-office mail? Who knows? So yesterday, what was it like before the internet? I don't know. There was no baseline anymore. I think we're already seeing the natural evolution of people being more productive in ways you might measure and in ways you can't measure.
But we know right now, as late as an hour ago, we're sitting in a meeting and we're talking about this fact that AI is getting very expensive for our customers. It's always been expensive for us because I think we've consumed it in many ways that our customers don't. And we've been a little bit, I think, ahead of the curve on how do you manage and cost optimize that AI investment, where I don't think a lot of customers are thinking right now, but they're starting to question.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably the most, like, if you had to like put a pin in it today, June 10th, 2026, that's the conversation I think a lot of customers want to have. That even 30 days ago, 60 days ago, certainly not 90 days ago, customers were not having that conversation with us.
I feel like it's you look at all the companies that put up leaderboards of how many tokens you consumed, and it turned overnight almost into a joke.
Is this the theory of tokenomics?
Tokenomics, yes. At the time, it was called token maxing, where they're trying to
like look maxing, but for tokens.
Exactly. They're trying to max out their token usage to win a leaderboard. And reality is, a lot of people were just putting agents on loops that were doing nothing useful just to consume it.
The old days of mouse movers.
Yeah. It's just like that, right? And the practical outcome was they were just burning cash, right? Or making things that were unusable.
So they gamified in the wrong way, but there might still be something there. Is the market shifting toward being critical of AI token spend, we'll call it, consumption spend?
Yeah.
And are there other models that are going to maybe solve for that?
So that became a joke, and which caused a lot of reflection, I think, in the last month of people saying, like, are we doing this for the right reasons? And where am I spending my cash? And I could have used that headcount. I didn't actually get, the Claude chatbot thing didn't help me do something faster than I actually anticipated. It made some other things faster, but the key goal I wanted to achieve Didn't happen.
If everybody just did the same amount of work in a little less time and they got a better lifestyle, perhaps, that doesn't actually translate to business profit.
Correct.
So there has to be something else that does.
Right. I
You
think
know,
people are
this-
still looking for it.
Andrew, this reminds me of the original cloud days again. I think there's a parallel here to what happened in the cloud. We were talking about cloud being scary for security.
Right.
Just like AI might be scary for security. People were talking about, oh my God, it's going to have access to my company record. It's going to train itself on my data. Maybe not. Maybe we've solved for that. But cost and compliance might be the next frontiers. And this whole AI management thing is headwinds right now to AI adoption.
Yeah, it's paradoxical. I mean, we hear even from our friends at AWS that they're internally tracking how many tokens people use and their overall general AI usage. And the theory is the more the better, that those that are power users are going to be most productive
They just shut
and
that down
innovative.
last week.
But yes, now the script has flipped
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, maybe this is costly, it is unproductive. And this brings up the idea of, the scary term of like AI bubble. We have all these mega companies like OpenAI and Anthropic moving into IPO, SpaceX with Grok as part of it, Grok AI or XAI, that are all coming really within months of each other, trying to time this moment. And I think there's this fear, like in the investing world, of is this the top, right? Are we seeing a bubble that mirrors the .com side of things? So history is kind of seeming to
Okay,
repeat
looked
itself.
at Jeff when he said .com side of
You know when
things.
Google was started?
It's very...
I'm sure during those dark times.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. And
Legit.
not only were great companies started, but it means that the bubble was a stock market valuation issue. It wasn't a business productivity thing. The dot-com revolution continued to propel businesses forward with internet adoption well after the pop.
Right.
In fact, it launched some of the world's best companies.
Amazon.
And wouldn't the same thing happen here?
Yeah.
Yes, the stock market might reset to a better EBITDA valuation multiple. I don't think that means that we're in store for like nobody's going to get value out of AI in the future. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard.
Well, and AI, my opinion, just going on record, this is my opinion. AI has propelled now space travel, rocket development, the next generation of internet, which is coming, which will be 100 times faster than what it is today, because you'll need it for AI processing, and AI data centers, which will not be physically located on planet Earth. That's
The moon?
AI
In orbit?
in space.
Well, there's somebody just announced. I think it's the
all because of AI, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of our ambition to go to the outer galaxies. It was because we realized that there's certainly more cost-effective ways to process information, to send information, and to manufacture and produce the processing power necessary for the next waves of AI development. To me, that's the bigger headline no one is really talking about. I think you're getting a little bit of it with the looming IPO of SpaceX, which I think is the first of more to come. Talk about exciting times, man. These are the things our grandparents, great-grandparents couldn't have dreamed of. I am every day, I'm absolutely floored by more and more that's coming that just isn't widely talked about, but when it hits and when it makes a splash, like it's just so remarkable.
Yeah.
Isn't it exciting?
Totally. I'll give you an example. We have all employees in this week for our Inno Week, right? One of them drove from Ohio, happened to be in a Tesla, didn't touch the steering wheel from the time he left to the time he got into our parking lot.
That's a little scary.
That was not a thing 3 years ago.
Right.
So if the amount of computing power necessary is already here for that,
Right.
can you imagine putting AI in the next robotic dog or in the next home assistant? The ability for us to transform literally our consumer experience day to day, I think, is the thing that people are going to experience
Do
differently,
you
more
think-
than a chatbot.
Going back to like the ROI piece for a minute, do you think people are just measuring the wrong thing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Trev,
understand.
I think you're right.
like, oh, I'm not getting value. Well, I'm making it up. They worked 40 hours before. They're going to work 40 hours later. The perception is that you still worked the full amount and you got work done. So it's a matter of how do you value the acceleration or completion of those deliverables,
That's a great point.
right?
What about the intangibles? So yes, there's the gas in the room sort of expands to fill the size of the room example. This is what
Yes.
you're saying. There might be a productivity cap based on what humans do otherwise. But
Or the business doesn't
similarly,
know how to measure it.
or they have no measure
Well-
for it. But there's one other thought here. What about what we did? We just did this for a consumer electronics company. We helped them build AI features into their consumer product, and now it can help sell more consumer product and SaaS subscriptions to that. AI enabled that transformation.
And they didn't think of AI, I think prior to our conversation with
Right.
them, they didn't think of AI more as anything more than just a chatbot. And let's face it, isn't that the majority of the initial conversations we're having with a
Yes.
customer? They're like, hey, we want AI in our business. We'll ask them what they mean. And they're really talking about a glorified chat assistant or some chat functionality.
It's the
which,
gateway drug.
dude, but that's so 3 years ago.
Right.
But that's where the mainstream still is thinking about AI. They're thinking when Elon Musk talks about building an AI data center on the moon and we need all this processing power, they're like, well, for what? For like higher quality graphics generation and
For memes.
Exactly.
For
But
memes.
chat is not what we're talking about.
Right.
Maybe what's happening, we see LLMs consolidating to a few mega players that can afford to build a new model, a foundation model.
Sure.
Maybe chatbots are going to do the same thing. Maybe because we just saw Amazon last month release their version of a desktop productivity tool called Quick. And we first got that question, how is Innovative's Darcy product different than Quick? Because we happen to have a chat interface?
Yeah.
No, I think the reality is you're going to have a few chat interfaces. Maybe it's Claude, or maybe it's Quick, or maybe it's
Gemini,
something else.
ChatGPT.
But maybe tools like Darcy can power all of them.
Sure.
And maybe that layer of enabling whatever the front end happens to be is where the real value comes from.
I just don't know. I think every company values people differently, right? And if you don't know how you value your own staff, you probably don't know how to measure the ROI impact of giving them an AI tool, right? It's like a lot of what we do when we consult is we talk about the business process we're trying to automate. Doesn't matter who it is, right? And then backing into why it's useful to automate. I think a lot of companies just adopt for the sake of adopting. They don't actually put their critical thinking in to determine if it's useful.
Right.
Well, Jeff, you mentioned a consolidation with a lot of these AI providers with the foundation models. There was big announcement of a long rumored release from Anthropic of the Mythos class.
Yeah.
Trav, what can you tell us about that? It sounds cool, but
Yeah.
maybe not.
So Mythos is let's back up. So Anthropic announced what was called Project Glasswing, which was a small set of security companies and banks, like the FinServ, sector, and they said we got a special model called Mythos. It can do some wild things with security, like vulnerability scanning and being able to like access information you probably wouldn't have anticipated it and finding weird things. And they gave it to these very small providers to say, strengthen your security before this model goes live because we don't want a bad actor to use this model to misbehave on your network. That's Project Glasswing. Well, yesterday they announced Anthropic Fable. Fable is a Mythos class model. Basically, it's Mythos, and then they neutered pieces of it so that it's like less, negative and antagonistic and so forth for very specific use cases like security and gene sequencing and so forth. So that came out yesterday. It's a super great model. To be honest with you, it actually is really, really good,
Especially for software engineering.
especially for software. But it is ungodly expensive. It is twice the cost of Opus, which was already at the time the most expensive model in the market. It's like $50 per million tokens, which is nothing in many cases, right? So there's lots of reports of people trying it and blowing their AI budget for a month in 5 queries.
I was so happy with Opus 4.6.
Yes.
Like it was fine.
I like 4.8 too. I don't like 4.7, but yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like it was okay. Is it going to be the case, Trav, that the same quality of this new model is going to be available to us at a more reasonable price if you just wait 3 months?
Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of open source. I think open source models are like the cost-effective way to get that kind of experience.
Oh, sorry. Even within their own pricing model, aren't they just going to drop the price in
No.
3 months? You think it's always going to be that price?
Correct.
I think it's like a used iPhone.
No,
I can get a used iPhone that's only a few months old. For a
they're
lot less.
100% extending the pricing on almost all these models. Guarantee you.
So it's never going down.
I'll bring the receipts. I don't think it's going down.
Unlike, compute with AWS, where they're always reducing the cost.
That's
You're
what I'm
saying
saying.
it's going to maintain and or get more expensive.
Yeah, so here's the trick, right? So look at Sonnet. It's probably the easiest example because it's been out for so long. So Sonnet 4.0 is the same price as Sonnet 4.5, 4.6, and so forth. It's always been the same price, right? And you say, oh, they're cost optimizing or something. No, what they've done is they say Sonnet 4.6 produces more tokens. Even if it's the same price, you produce more of it, which means your pricing goes up, right? They always do the same thing of Opus and Haiku and so forth. It's always maintain the price, but the price really, sort of the elasticity
If that's
of
the
the price
case,
is increasing.
if what you're saying is that it's always going to be always $50 per million tokens for this new model,
Yes.
then people have to be really efficient with those tokens.
Yeah, I mean, we disabled it for our staff.
Right.
I turned it off as soon as it came out.
So we wouldn't turn it on unless we had controls around this that said, oh my God, we're wasting it on generating poems.
Yes.
Let's not allow employees to use poems. Like, let's instead have it write software for us.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a reactive solve. I think you got to solve it up front because they're not going to be like, oh, sorry, you spent $10,000. You're still going to pay $10,000 for your mistake.
Right.
So you restricted it because of cost controls, not necessarily because it's too powerful or security concerns.
No, it's too expensive. I wouldn't want our staff who are uneducated as to how much it costs, right? Because
So employees don't have a budget. The company does.
they don't have a budget, right? The company does. But also, when you ask an agent to go do something, it doesn't tell you how many tokens it's going to cost to go do it.
Right.
It just does it.
Yes.
So you have no idea how much it's going to cost you until it's done.
Yep.
And so for staff who don't know how much it costs, don't know how much it's going to take to do the work, I don't want to give it to them until we have a good handle as to what it actually can do.
Well, I thought it was interesting timing because Anthropic with Claude, they dropped this, super powerful model that is, supposed to be a game changer. At the same time, made a blog post talking about how maybe the industry should slow or temporarily pause this frontier AI development. Hey, maybe right after we did ours.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the timing of that was suspect, but we've never heard that from these foundation models before, like slowing down innovation.
Oh,
What's
Sam
behind
Altman,
that?
Sam Altman asked for it like a year ago.
Is it because that they're afraid of the competition between Dario and Sam and Elon and
I think they're afraid of Chinese models. I don't think they're afraid of within the government or within our national politics of
So you think
models.
DeepSeek is actually driving enough competition in the market that it's going to
100%.
So that will be the price control that keeps prices from going through the roof?
Right. I think you're going to see a lot of open source models get near, not exactly the same, but near the intelligence
Good enough.
for a 60 or 70% cost delta.
Yeah.
And they're going to try to race it to the bottom. And when that is just like, this is a classic move for, like Chinese models or Chinese like sort of go to market in general. They drop the price dramatically until they've run the competition out, and then they raise prices.
Isn't it interesting though that the cost of a model development is all upfront? It's like CapEx. You're building
Yeah.
a factory and then you have to recover it over time. But once the factory's paid for, you can charge whatever you want.
Correct.
There's
Well,
really no incremental cost to
the GPU's got to run it.
a little bit, but not as much as compiling it in the first place.
Yeah. Yes. But it still costs you something
So
to run it.
So there's
yeah.
a floor. There's a floor.
Yeah, for 100%.
Yeah, I get you.
I've heard people make the analogy of the rising cost of AI, likening it to the early days of Uber. I don't know if you remember when Uber came out, but I
Super
could
cheap.
get across Chicago for like $5-10.
Right.
And yes, of course they put, all the cabs that were plentiful out of business, and we thought it was revolutionary. And now that same ride, $50.
And there's no more cabs.
And there's no more cabs.
Right.
And so I think people are seeing that same thing of, hey, they've been operating at a loss, buying the business, really changing the market and the way we work, having these massive employment disruptions. And now that the market's kind of cornered between 3 or 4 big firms, prices are going up.
I had a customer ask me today. They asked, how can your team use so many tokens for the cost? Because I told them how much we spend on our tokens per month compared to like their business is like 4x the cost, right? And my answer was, we host our own models. There's no middleman. We don't pay margin tax to Anthropic or OpenAI, right? And we optimize what models people get for the different use cases they get. And our costs are dramatically cheaper to scale out the business as a result of that. I don't think a lot of companies are there yet. I think in the next 6 months, you're going to see a ton of people be like, oh my God, what did I just buy? and how do I optimize it?
And if they want to optimize it, you're saying they could go run an open source model on an AWS cloud environment
Yeah.
for less expensive than they could spend
Totally.
on tokens from Claude.
Totally.
Well, you may be happy to know that when I am at work using Darcy, I do feel cost conscious for
Aw.
how I use it. Sometimes if
You don't
I'm
need to be.
doing
It's okay.
things that are maybe I could have done otherwise, I'm like, man, what is this costing us? But I know it is a big initiative for us to use AI in what we do, not only at work, but also, personally. We share every week at our all staff a segment called AI in the Wild, where people talk about how they use it. And you mentioned, Jeff, we are here in Rochester for In a Week, where we gather our entire company, very intentional time for collaboration and recognition and team building and giving back, and it's awesome. And one of our coworkers built a tool for folks coming from out of town, just talking about all that you can do in a nearby neighborhood of Fairport to Rochester. And that was an awesome tool built on Darcy. And I used it extensively for my wife who's in town to plan what we should do. And I'm like, I wonder what this costs. Probably small, but at least it was on my mind.
Yeah, probably $1.
How have you guys been using it lately? And have you thought of the cost consciousness in your personal use?
My son has, so I have a skill in Darcy for, so my son likes some TV show, and I'm not going to explain TV show because it's too complicated to explain. But he likes his TV show, and it's got 2 characters in it. And I made a skill that replicates the TV show, who the characters are and what they're shaped and so forth. And so, right. And when I go home on the weekends, we do storybooks. So I load the skill, I ask what he did during his school week, and he tells me, and then I reenact his school week from the persona of the school.
You just don't want to share because it's IP theft, but I love this idea.
Yeah. No, it's a very hard to explain story. The school, the show itself. But he loves it. He comes up to me every single day. He goes, "Oh, can we make a story today?"
That's really cool.
Right? I think it's neat.
Yeah. Well,
right.
A great conversation. Man, changing topics as always. Fast moving. It's been great to chat. Can't wait for next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Talk soon.